Hey everybody, my name is Amber Rose, and this is my video for my ESL-440N Home and School Connections assignment. The first area we're going to be talking about is culturally responsive teaching. There's a few questions in this area. The first question being, what are the cultural influences on teaching and learning? What is cultural competence and its role in the instruction of ELs? How can ELs' cultural values and beliefs be integrated appropriately in the context of teaching and learning? There are many different cultural influences on teaching and learning because the practices that a student experiences at home may be completely different than what they experience at school. And because of this, it can affect the approach of education for a student. The biggest example of cultural influences is seen for parents who want their child to focus on academic achievement and not socializing and relationships. This can impact an educator's perception of a student and what their needs may be, as many educators create reward systems and/or public praise for students who volunteer and/or participate in activities. It is important that educators understand that many students whose families expect academic achievement and not socializing also acknowledge other ways to engage students whose cultural norms are different from our own. Understanding cultural competence and its role it plays on instruction of English learners is beneficial. Cultural competence is defined by appropriateness and effectiveness of one's behavior in an alien cultural environment, according to Susan Wyndham at Penn State. When educators understand and begin to develop cultural competence, it can help us understand, communicate, and effectively interact with our students who are from different cultures. We can develop this by having awareness of our own culture and other cultures around us worldwide, gaining experience and knowledge of different cultural practices and adjusting our attitude towards different cultures and their differences. This can be done by integrating differences of English learners' cultural beliefs and values into the classroom, by learning about our students, bringing in guest speakers, providing different forms of content through learning like playing games, creating artwork, and watching videos. Incorporate peer teaching strategies, encourage students to have a say in how they learn, and incorporating parents into the classroom through newsletters and volunteering opportunities. The second question, what is the role of culture in student learning? How do schools and classroom environments include language acquisitions, and what steps are necessary to create an inclusive environment? Culture in education environment is more than just holidays, music, and food. The role of culture in student learning means creating a positive environment where students feel safe, respected, and encouraged to take risks. It plays an important role in emotional and social development. It means encouraging a sense of belonging in the school environment for students who are different. Students who feel like they belong are often happier. They show more interest and perform better academically. The collaborative environment increases and behavioral issues decrease. Language acquisition is broken down into two categories. First, language acquisition is developed by individuals listening to the sounds around them, imitating these sounds, and begin producing words independently, much like a baby learning to talk. The second includes having some knowledge in a first language, and then going through a process to learn the elements of language such as vocabulary, phonological components, grammatical structures, and writing systems. There are 6 stages of learning language acquisitions. Pre-production, or the silent period, in which an English learner takes in the language around them but does not speak it. Early production, in which an individual starts speaking short words and sentences but is still absorbing the information around them. Speech emergent, where the words and sentences are longer, but also look for context clues and familiar topics to engage in. Beginning fluency, where the student's speech is slightly fluent, but they have minimal errors, and new information in academic language is challenging due to gaps in the vocabulary and appropriate phrases. Intermediate fluency, in which a student can communicate in social situations fluently and mostly in new situations and/or academic areas. Then there's advanced fluency, where a student can communicate fluently in all situations, understand new information, and is comfortable when communicating in the second language. Once understanding language acquisitions, educators are then able to use different recommendations to create inclusive environments. Strategies such as scaffolding instruction, to allow students to complete different academic tasks in their level, using common cognitives between language to increase English vocabulary, provide explicit vocabulary instruction, intentionally and appropriately correct errors, and learning another language to have simple communication with English learning students. The third question in this area: what are some strategies for supporting and celebrating cultural diversity within instruction? What are some strategies for leveraging home language and cultural assets? Supporting and celebrating cultural diversity within the classroom is important for students to learn to respect their classmates who are different from them, while also gaining new different perspectives on the culture around them. Academically, students advance their critical thinking and problem-solving skills and often do better in school academically. There are a few different strategies to incorporate supporting and celebrating cultural diversity into instruction. Students can celebrate holidays of English learning students within the classroom and/or cultures through making relevant crafts, serving treats from the culture, reading books associated with their holidays. Music and art can also promote diversity by talking about different music, listening to it, and talking about any similarities and differences students hear. Incorporating a multicultural library that has books with characters or similar cultures from other countries. Guest speakers and interviewers are also a great way to allow students to gain information directly from the source. This can be done by inviting people from different cultures to speak to the class, either in person or virtually, allowing them to talk with the students and ask questions as they may have. Educators can also incorporate a show and tell in the classroom to allow students to bring something that represents their culture and talk about the how and why. Other examples include holding a multicultural fair and/or teaching students a new language to allow them to communicate with their peers of a different language. The second area we're going to talk about is supporting the needs of ELs in the classroom. The first set of questions: what are some strategies for responsiveness to the different strengths, needs, and identities of all EL students, including special needs? What are some opportunities and approaches to meet the social and emotional needs of ELs? Supporting the different strengths, needs, and identities of EL learners include many strategies that can be used for those English learners with special needs and can also be used to meet their social and emotional needs. It is important to understand that English learners experience a lot when transitioning to a new learning environment where they do not speak the same language. Therefore, it is important that we acknowledge their unique personalities, experiences, and talents despite the language challenges they may face. A few strategies that can support English learners in all subjects, regardless of the challenges they may face, include using closed captioning when using video content in the classroom. This strategy supports hearing impaired, enhances comprehension, and improves literacy skills. Voice typing allows students to use speaking in their own language and use a tool such as Google Translate to communicate with those around them, or to allow students who struggle to spell and write to speak what they want to say in the computer instead. Offering choices, adding gestures to communication, drawing and/or writing keywords that come up during instruction for visualization, and using charts all allow students to have different options during their learning experience that best fits their needs. Pairing students up with peers who students want to work with and/or are even bilingual may support their comfort levels when they are working in the classroom. Lastly, using a microphone in the classroom can amplify the voice of the instructor, which can make listening easier for the student as they can hear clearly and understand what is being said. The second set of questions: what is the importance of understanding the social, emotional, and cultural needs of students when establishing classroom routines and procedures? It is important for educators to understand the importance of social, emotional, and cultural needs of their students when establishing routines and procedures. This is because when educators understand the different needs, they can influence behaviors and actions and impact student-teacher interactions and manage behavior easily. Due to the differences between cultures, some students may experience different practices and beliefs that might create cultural gaps, as what they know may not align to the new rules and procedures of their new classroom, which most educators may see as traditional rules and procedures. When establishing rules and procedures in a cultural, inclusive environment and classroom, Educators may ask their students for input on what they believe is acceptable behavior in their home and culture, and how they believe they can translate it into a fair and appropriate behavior in the classroom. Educators can also seek family input through meetings and/or two-way communication to learn more about what promotes success for their students that can be incorporated into the classroom. Lastly, building relationships with students and among students is important because it allows a better understanding for educators and students to not only understand why particular rules and procedures are necessary, but how it can help one another succeed. It leads to understanding and respecting each other, helping them learn and grow through the differences of others. The last area we're going to talk about is the home and school connections. The first question, how might family and community practices influence language of learning? Funds of knowledge or family and community practices influence language learning because it allows students to connect new information they learn to what they already know. Educators can use text, materials, and examples to draw information from students' cultures and can facilitate their learning through scaffolding their understanding. As they do this, they are integrating patterns of learning, knowing, and doing that are familiar, making an academic content easily to understand, which allows students to apply the information on their level. Educators who can make these connections between academics and student lives create a meaningful and more engaging environment. The last set of questions. What are some strategies to build and foster strong family, community, and school partnerships? What is an effective family engagement practices that support and highlight the assets of home languages, including communication, family involvement, and providing intentional strategies for families of ELs? What are some inclusive community engagement practices? Building and fostering strong family, community, and school partnerships is an important factor to a student's success in school. Educators can be inclusive by referring to students' caregivers as families instead of individual titles, using phrases such as our classroom instead of my classroom, and find out what special considerations are needed for communication such as different languages. Seeking input from parents through surveys at the beginning of the school year can also be done to determine a parent's hopes and dreams for their student, the student's interest and disinterest in school, and any information that is important about the student that the teacher should know. Meet and greets or back-to-school sessions provide the opportunity to meet families and have small interactions of getting to know the students and their families. Lastly, communicating with parents is important, and this can be done through managing communication effectively through sending whole class messages or writing personalized messages that reinforce the positive of academic and/or social skills that the student has achieved. To ensure engagement supports and highlights home languages of family and the community involvement, educators can consider strategies such as ensuring that communication is accessible for all families, make consistent efforts to learn about different family cultures and beliefs, make participation in events easy and accessible, support students and their families to see themselves within the school community, and help families support their child's learning when at home. Thanks for listening. Bye.